G'day, everybody, and welcome to this very special episode of Good Old DNA Reviews, where we're not actually reviewing a movie or a TV show, but we're reviewing the convention that leads into the people who make the movies and the TV shows. Celebration Europe, Mr. Aaron. How cool is that?
Yes, this is a very special Easter episode. It's a bonus. The stone rolled sideways and Dags and Aaron came out.
One of us is an Easter bunny, and I don't know which one it is. So is the question for you: is the convention still going? Or is it finished by now?
No, I think they're in the last day now, but I think there's been so many cool things that have been announced. It was worth talking about it straight away.
Very, very cool. So as we mentioned, we're talking about the good old celebration in Europe. Actually, whereabouts in Europe is it? I just realised I've got no idea where it is.
It's in the Excel Centre, which is London. It's a big convention centre in London.
That'd be very, very cool. Got to say, if you had a chance to be in London and go to that gig, it'd be awesome. So we're discussing a whole lot of things, but primarily it'll be about the news and the reviews that came out of Good Old Celebration. And of course, we'll be discussing the Ahsoka trailer, which got released, as did the Indiana Jones one. As always, there will be spoilers, even though a lot of it's speculation, but there may be things that people are or aren't aware of or don't want to be told. So just be aware of that. So it is very good. It is very, very exciting. And I reckon we're just going to jump straight into it, Mr. Aaron. So Star Wars Celebration in Europe, and it is all very good and groovy. There's a lot of news that came out, and we're going to kick it off with a bit of this.
So this is from the opening day because we've been getting a lot of feedback. And when you said there's going to be spoilers, we're going to be looking at everything that's coming out on Disney, planned to come out on Disney Plus and at the cinema for the next couple of years. That said, there's so many spoilers. Half of this stuff probably won't even be made, knowing Disney from past years. But the convention kicked off with what is known as a sizzle reel. Did you want to explain what that is for people who might not understand what a sizzle reel is, Dags?
Yeah, normally a sizzle reel is just a cut down of it's like a whole lot of trailers, but just shoved into one very short piece. So it's bits of this, bits of that. So it's just like it's really hot and it's really exciting, and it just gets everybody jazzed up. They tend to be very, very short, but enough cool stuff to make people's minds go completely thermonuclear.
Exactly. I couldn't have put it better myself. And so they showed that to get the crowd all riled up, and then out sauntered the head of Lucasfilm, Kathleen Kennedy, and she welcomed everyone to the celebration and started off the panels. So it kicked off the day with the sizzle reel for all the different shows, which was a little thing to whet everybody's appetite, and then they went straight into Andor. And apparently the new series of Andor has just finished filming. And they will be filming up to August, and it leads directly into Rogue One. There wasn't a lot of news on what was happening in Andor, just that, it was going to lead directly into Rogue One, and the cast was there, which is one of the benefits of going to Celebration. You get to see a lot of people that you normally wouldn't see day to day.
Yeah, so for those who don't know, Andor was originally slated to go for 5 seasons, and for whatever reason, they just cut it right down to 2, because it was supposed to be each season was meant to represent 1 year leading up to Rogue One. So season 2 may be a tad choppy and changey, depending on how they sort of like fit the next 4 years into it. So that didn't kind of surprise me, because clearly it was a show that didn't appeal to everybody, and somebody obviously thought it needed to be shortened down. That's what they're going to do. So. But the fact that it leads into Rogue One should be very interesting. So whether Jyn Erso actually appears in it or not is anybody's guess, but it certainly will focus on good old Cassian Andor and his involvement with the Rebel Alliance.
The thing that I found interesting, just by his, I guess, presence there, Andy Serkis was there talking about Series 2. So maybe there was no way out of his contract. He was, of course, the prisoner that couldn't swim, so didn't really get away from the platform. So he might be appearing in the next series.
So if Andor Series 2 works out really, really well, people might get to the end of it and go, oh, what a damn, it's finished. But anyway, that's what we've got something to look forward to next time around. Now, this one is an interesting one that's coming up. So they discussed about the Acolyte, which, of course, is set before the Phantom Menace. There's not a lot of shows that actually occur in that time frame, but this is one of them, set in the High Republic era, about 100 and something years before the Phantom Menace. How good's that?
Yeah, so it is one of those that not a lot is really known about yet. They've said they've actually completed, including post-production, the first 4 episodes, and it looks really amazing. I guess they're never going to come out at these things and go, oh, we're pretty disappointing in how it's looking. But you got to go along with the hype, I guess. And they said it was looking really good. We're going to see our first Wookiee Jedi in the Acolyte.
Well, that's sort of splitting a bit hairs. They do actually have Force sensitive Wookiees, because we saw them in the Clone Wars. So, but I guess you could argue clearly that kid, because he had a tooth that stuck up. I don't know what his name was, but clearly he wasn't a Jedi yet, but he would have been at some point. But I guess so. Yeah, Wookiees can be force sensitive. I guess every race can be force sensitive for whatever reason. So, but yeah, that should be very, very groovy. So, yeah, if they do it like as they did Chrysanthemum,
Yes.
it was a Black Chrysanthemum, I think it was, from Book of Boba Fett, and they turn a Jedi, make him like a character like him into a Jedi. That would look really good because he looked fantastic in the Book of Boba Fett. So yeah.
Yeah, and you get an extra point for using splitting hairs when we're talking about Wookiees.
Oh dear! Whatever happened to that Wookiee Jedi? We ended up on Palpatine's rug on the floor with an apple and.
So yeah, the Acolyte is an interesting one. A lot of people have been looking forward to it because there is a cut screen of one of the old Star Wars games, which is basically a little girl who's force sensitive. She's taken away from her parents and slowly corrupted to the dark side. And a lot of people are excited because they're thinking that's what this was kind of going to be based on. So if they do that, I think it will be a very interesting show.
Very, very cool. Just going back a bit, Christy did say that Andy found a life raft. So that was obviously from Rogue One, from Andor. And Daniel said, yeah, the Wookiee Jedi on the Clone Wars is called Gungi. Gungi, there you go. So there you go. But don't forget, he wasn't a Jedi. He was just young at that point. And there you go. So very, very cool. And because the way the Clone Wars ended up, he probably didn't become a Jedi. But not to worry. Now, this is interesting, the one that you're about to bring up. When they announced all these TV shows and movies, well, a couple of years ago, this one was not included. And somewhere along the way, it's been chucked in the mix, and it's good old Skeleton Crew.
Yeah, this was one that had kind of gone under the radar for me. From what I can tell, it's more of a Disney kids show set in the Star Wars universe, where you've got the one adult lead, which is Jude Law, who's usually quite a good actor, and then the rest of the cast are juvenile. So you've got a younger cast, and it's basically now in post-production, so it's been filmed, but they're fixing up and editing and doing all that kind of thing. And it's basically a group of kids go on adventures throughout the galaxy. So maybe it'll be like Flight of the Navigator or the Explorers or something like that. It'll have a different vibe, I think, from the regular Star Wars series that we've been getting. What did you think of this one?
Oh, you know what? I haven't given any thought. I mean, I was surprised when they did the big announcement about 3 years ago prior to COVID, and they said all these things are coming out. And this was not on the list at all. And now it is on the list. But in the interim, Rangers of the New Republic has been given the flick. So it's almost like they've chucked one out and put another one in. I'm willing to take a stab that someone has said at Disney/Lucasfilm. Okay, what about producing a show that is specifically children orientated and go for that market? Because clearly they've realized from, say, Mandalorian that Grogu is a very popular character. Make a kids show. And they've done that animated wise with things like Resistance. But a live action one, I think it's probably not a bad idea. You certainly can't fault them with giving it a shot. So
if it was something like Goonies in space or something like that, that'd be pretty cool. And they might have gone, Star Trek's got lower decks. What have we got? Skeleton Crew, or just to keep up with the other space franchise. Who knows?
Yep, don't know. And Daniel's mentioned about the actor who's going to play Chewie will be the Wookiee Jedi in the Acolyte. So yeah, very good stuff. And of course, the big news that came out, because they obviously had trailers for this as well, was good old Ahsoka. It's finally making its appearance.
Yeah, so we're going to talk a little bit more about Ahsoka later. We've just put this in because this is the order they were doing the reveals at Celebration yesterday. Well, the one thing I did think was very interesting, they're refilming the end of Rebels live action, and you can see I've taken some of the screenshots from the Rebels series, and then you can see underneath it in the trailer they had the live action version. It's almost scene for scene, so that'll be really interesting, sort of doing that I guess transfer across from CG to live action, I guess, to carry it across. What do you think of that?
I don't get the logic behind it. Why would you do it? I mean, if either that or just recreate Rebels, the entire series, in live action to get a brand new audience, because not everybody, and we've discussed this before, watches animated shows. Yeah. And what if one part, I mean, what would happen if, for those who don't know, if the live action version of this contradicts something that occurs in Rebels, then the live action version takes priority. Okay, that's how the system in canon works. The latest version of live action always overshadows or replaces anything that came before it. So it's sort of interesting. It'll probably look good. And we're going to discuss, as you said, Ahsoka a bit later on, because there's a lot of Rebels connections there. But the logic behind it, I don't know. But
well, I think I think you'd probably agree. The last 5 minutes of Rebels was one of the best 5 minutes of the entire show, or any of the animated shows. So if they start off Ahsoka with the live action version of that, you're going to get instantly amazing launch to the series.
Once again, and of course, one thing we do know about Ahsoka, and we'll discuss this later on, is it's very fan centric. It's not designed for the public. Mandalorian seasons 1 and 2 were very public orientated for the general audience. It's clearly this is going to be aimed at the fan base, which means they can put all the Easter eggs and all the references in, and all the people watching it will get it, which is particularly cool. So, yeah, good stuff.
So it wasn't just TV series they were announcing, and this is kind of interesting because we haven't had a live action Star Wars movie at the cinema, and there was nothing. I guess I can't say there was nothing planned, but there was nothing solid planned. Everything kept changing, and I think that's because they changed the direction of where they wanted to go, and then maybe stuff wasn't as popular as they thought it was, and they want to go in other directions, and so they dropped some of it, and some of it changed from movies to TV, and I don't know if that was because of COVID or because of script issues or things like that, but it seems like they finally said, okay, we've got a timeline, very like the Marvel timeline where they sort of lay out each phase and what they're going to try and do in it. But they've kind of locked that down now with different eras of the Republic and the Jedi and the Empire. And they've announced 3 new Star Wars movies that are planned. Now, I think it was it a DJ Gravedigger last week said Disney announced with a fanfare and then cancel like very quietly later down the track. So who knows how many of these will actually go ahead. But I do like what they're doing, because they're doing a past one, a present one, and a future one when we're looking at the different eras of the Star Wars timeline. So something for everyone, you would think. So the first one they've announced is Dave Filoni directing a movie set to wrap up the events of the Mandoverse. So I take it that all the series we're seeing now, The Mandalorian, probably the Ahsoka series, any of the ones that are set with the Mandalorian and that sort of set of characters, is going to end up with a big finale on the big screen.
I'm going to take a stab and say all the execs got together and they go, all right, how can we make more money out of this product? And they go, how about this? You set a film, make it a theatrical motion picture that's going to be in the cinemas based around Din Djarin, and Grogu will be in the cinema. All right. That means everybody's going to buy tickets to go and see it. The cash cow just keeps on chicking over those little dollar signs. And I reckon that's what because not everybody will have Disney Plus, right?
Yes.
So a lot of people say, I've never actually watched Mandalorian because I don't have Disney Plus. How do you beat that? You put the damn thing in the cinema. He's on the big screen, more merchandise. That would be the behind the scenes. That would be the inspiration for it.
Well,
my words.
I like your idea, and I can take it further. What you do, you have the Mandalorian end on a cliffhanger, a Bo-Katan series end on a cliffhanger, and the Ahsoka one end on a cliffhanger, all going into the movies. But then you clone Grogu, so there are as many of him as there are minions. And so you have all the different versions, like the different Gremlins in Gremlins 2, the Mohawk one and all that. So you can pick your own version of Grogu that you want to keep and collect. No? Too much?
No, that's going too far. There can be. It's like Highlander. There can be only one. So yes, very, very good. But you won't mark my words. Grogu on the big screen, and all the kids will go completely troppo, and they'll be like money. It'll just be a money making machine. So, but anyway, good on it for doing it. As we said, a lot of these movies, whether they actually get made, because previously there was going to be a Rian Johnson trilogy, the Game of Thrones guys was going to have a trilogy. All that just went nowhere. So stuff comes and goes. But watch this space with great interest.
Just go back, because there was a second movie we hadn't talked about on that last slide.
Oh, I must have actually. Hang on. You mean that one?
No, the one we just saw. So that one.
Sorry. Yep.
Sorry. Yep. So we talked about the present one, which I guess it's the present, where we're talking about what's on Disney Plus at the moment. The other one, James Mangold, who's also the director of the Indiana Jones movie. And I think by announcing this, they must be thinking the Indiana Jones movie went well, because they've given him a Star Wars movie. And they're saying it's going to be the story of the very first Jedi, and it's almost a biblical epic of, I guess, the first person to contact the Force and master the Force and set up the Jedi religion. So that's a really interesting thing to do, because there's been talks before of fans wanting Knights of the Old Republic and some of the stuff from that era, but they're going way back to even before that. Do we know anything from that era at all, really?
No, not from a canon point of view. No, because Knights of the
No.
Old Republic, which was the big role playing game that everybody wanted, because the cut scenes for that were fantastic. But
Yeah,
that's not
yeah.
canon. So officially, so they can go back and rewrite whatever they want. But yeah, a lot of people will be looking at that thinking, "Oh my god, we're finally going to get a KOTOR." Was it a movie? And of course, it probably won't be. But good on them
Yeah.
for doing it. I mean, when you go that far back, you can make up any rules you want, and nothing will contradict what happens in the future. So yeah, good on them.
I wonder if you will get that very first like Jedi Bendu stuff that George Lucas jotted down really early in the creation of Star Wars. I guess you could.
You could indeed. As to whether you will or not, I don't know. And as I said about, he thinks it'll be a version of the end of the Empire. No, I don't think so. That's all that timeline has all been covered off in Ahsoka, as we well know, from the trailer, in fact. So there you go. So anyway, I jumped ahead a couple of slides further than I should have. So there's this.
Still go back one.
Oh, really? I've already gone back one.
No, go back another one.
Back. That's where I was.
Oh, sorry. As you were. So there is one more. There is one more movie been announced. I must have not sent you the slide for it. That was the slide we were looking for.
Yep.
And this is the big surprise for me because I never thought this would happen. I never thought any of the Disney trilogy actors had come back in such a big role. But Daisy Ridley has going to reprise her role as Rey Skywalker 15 years after the events of the Rise of Skywalker. And this is I guess the new Jedi Academy and the new Jedi she's setting up that follows on from that trilogy. Now, I don't know if this is just a one-off or they're going to spin that into a trilogy as well, but that was something I didn't see coming. What did you think of this one, Dags?
Well, a couple of things. You got up the top here, as you said, all the different timelines. Now you're going to put one after Rise of the First Order, right? Which will be whatever she's in.
Yep.
I think maybe Ray's short of a quid and goes, "All right, mate, I'm desperate. I don't want to sell pencils on the street corner. Sign me up for a movie. It'll be awesome." Look, it's interesting. The only irky bit, if you will, is they've got to produce an adversary. So once again, if you get more bad guys, I mean, after Palpatine and the Final Order and all that, you're thinking, what are you going to do to beat that? I don't know. But I mean, good on them for doing it. It could be very interesting. I mean, it's a few years. She's like the age thing will work out quite well. I don't know. I mean, ironically, she couldn't really set up a Jedi Academy because she was just fast tracked through her training through it with Luke. And it was just like, well, anyway, that's better. Good on them for doing it.
Well, the one thing, I don't know if it'll happen. The one thing, though, is you can have Mark Hamill in it, definitely, as a Force ghost. So there's a lot of potential for him to be training her and things like that as well. So it does have a lot of potential of what they can do and what they can take that story.
Christy, yep. Is Daisy having money trouble? Yeah, well, what was it? She was in Murder in the Orient Express. Maybe that didn't work for her. Yeah, she's running out of money. Yeah, everybody's thinking the same thing. Because you would think that way. You've done your trilogy, you've packed up, moved on. Why would you come back to it? So there's got to be a carrot that's been dangled, and maybe that's it. So, but anyway, good on them. Yeah,
he's been given a golden lightsaber.
Yeah, well, exactly right. So there you go. Guy has said, I'd love to see what they might come up with, the way older, not history recorded Star Wars. Well, that's exactly right. If they're not following any particular canon from the past, they can rewrite their own history. So there you go, which should be very cool. And he kept showing me the Tales of the Jedi slide. Is there a reason I've got this?
Yes, there is more announcements on that. I think they must just be out of order. So if we come up for that one now, they did announce it's the 40th anniversary for Return of the Jedi, and a new edition is going into the cinemas, which is something that surprises me. And of course, Tales for the Jedi has been renewed for a second season as well. So there were a couple of the little announcements.
So what that means, you'll be seeing blinking Ewoks on the big screen. How good is that?
For the first time ever, we can shout at the screen, show us your blinking Ewok.
And I've never seen the updated version. Isn't it like when Vader chucks, he's watching Luke getting electrocuted, he's going, no, I wouldn't watch it just for that reason alone. It's like, nope, no, thank you. So there are some changes that should not have been changed. So and that's definitely one of them. Blinking Ewoks, the eyes for the Ewoks doesn't bother me, but the other stuff does. So yes, the movie does turn. And for those who are wondering, for the Australian release, it is October 26th is the actual anniversary for the Australian release. Very, very good. And of course, with all things Star Wars, it's not just what's on the screen; it's also what is in the collectible stores. What do you reckon, Mr. Aaron? More stuff to buy.
There was a Hasbro panel, so if the action figures float your boat, there was a plethora of stuff that they've been released. And this is day one and day two releases. So many people go to see what toys are being released. They've staggered the releases of what they're going to show the fans. Now, I haven't gone into a lot of depth. We could have done pages and pages on each figure. So I've just gone through a selection of the figures, and there's some nice ones. There's a really nice Black Series Chopper, which is one of those characters lots of people love, and it's really hard to get because they released one of him years ago, and that was pretty much it. So that'll please a lot of fans who collect the droids and rebels and things like that. There's a selection of clones. There's a selection of different stuff from the Mandalorian and other series. There's a really nice edition of the Jedi Force Ghosts from Return of the Jedi. Maybe that's to do with the anniversary that's coming up. And then there's another selection of vintage series stuff that seems to be chugging along nicely. Everyone likes that. They're releasing a new vintage series, classic series, Jabba the Hutt. So there hasn't been a Jabba around for a while. So that's, I think, a release that's going to go down well with fans, and again ties in with the anniversary of Return of the Jedi. And then you've got your obligatory themed versions of Monopoly, and the new this year's Black Series helmet is that the clone one there. And there's a few other bits and pieces. So fans who like their collectibles are being very well served by Hasbro this year.
One thing, whoever buys this, I think it's the picture's been flipped because I think Anakin's supposed to be on the right and Kenobi's on the left. I wonder who's going to rip Anakin Hayden's head off and then do a 3D print of Sebastian Shaw's head instead and stick that on.
If Hasbro was smart, it'd be half one, half the other. Then some would buy one, some would buy the other, and the real collectors would have to buy two, one of each.
Yep, totally agree. Because there are some of us who still think that the Sebastian Shaw version is the one that should be there. All these great toys. Will you ever get a properly working land speeder? Indeedy, doody, doody. Well, you never know. But if they did, it'd be a massive success. If they try to sell it, it'd be worth a lot of money, though. Very, very good. Gavin said, "Where's Yoda?" I don't know if they did any Yoda stuff. They probably did, didn't they?
I didn't see any Yoda this time, but there you go, Gavin. If you put the pop that on an envelope and send it to Hasbro, and before you know, there'll be a new Yoda for you, mate.
Yeah, the problem is though, it's like Yoda's out and Grogu's in at the moment. So yes, he's just he's the cash cow, dude. So nobody wants to buy Yoda, but Grogu, absolutely, they will. So
all these fans that have been fans of Yoda for their whole life, and then Grogu muscles in on his territory. It's not good, is it?
Yeah, you can just imagine Yoda's looking down at each other. He's looking up and going. That can make for a funny T-shirt. All right, so that's all the news and the hot goss that came out of Celebration, which is particularly cool. And of course, what they did is they released 2 trailers for 2 upcoming movies and a TV series, which is very cool. We're going to start with the first one first, which is good old Indy Jones and the Dial of Destiny, as for those who didn't know the name of it. So Gavin said, Grogu does nothing for you. That's okay. It is the cash cow for a lot of other people. And I know that because I saw a Grogu backpack on a kid in Dubbo just the other day. So there you go. So June the 30th, Mr. Aaron.
Only in cinemas. Isn't it funny, since COVID and things were streaming and on different services, a lot of the advertising for the big movies now states only in cinemas. So you have to get off your butt and go and see it in the cinema unless you want to wait 6 months to see it on streaming.
Indeedy doody doody. Look at that. Looks very, very cool.
Yep, and here is the advanced poster and the regular poster. We're going to have a bigger look at those with the old posters, just to give you an idea of how they fit in. Are you excited about a new Star? Well, I know you reply, but I'm going to ask you so our viewers can get your opinion. Are you excited again about a new Indiana Jones movie?
Not me personally. No, not really. So, but I wish it all the best and hope it does well for itself. But I mean, you don't want history to repeat itself. A lot of people were just like chomping at the bit when Crystal Skull came out and they walked out of the cinemas and disliked it. So with a bit of luck, for the 5th time, they'll get it all right. So, yeah.
I do think they've got something to prove in that they want to leave it on a high note. Let's just hope that they manage to.
Very, very cool. Colin, yes, I was in Dubbo a couple of days ago. So, yeah, it wasn't a fluff on my part and getting the wrong word out. Who wants to make a full watch party in a cinema? Well, you never know. Christy, organise it. You'll be absolutely fantastic. Natasha, good old Tasha's joined us for the first time in Yonks. Can't wait to see this. The trailer was amazing, and it certainly was. And it is very, very cool. So, yes.
So, for those that don't know, I guess the news has been around for a while, but we've got Harrison Ford, of course, returning as Indiana Jones for his final outing as the man with the hat. As we mentioned before, James Mangold is directing. So this is the first Indiana Jones movie not directed by Steven Spielberg. So it will be interesting to see if it's a different tone and a different feel to it, or whether they will. I think they will. They'll try to do it as a homage to Steven Spielberg's style of directing. And then we've got a couple of new characters. We've got Helena or Helena, I'm not sure which one, which is Phoebe Waller-Bridge, who also was the voice of, was it in Han Solo, the droid in that one. I always forget that droid.
L3.
L3. Yes, I was going to say L7, but that's a band. So we've got her as the new female lead, and then we've got Mads Mikkelsen as Colonel Voltar, who is the German evil bad guy. And let's face it, I think he is kind of typecast as that, except for when he was in Rogue One.
Yeah, he played a good guy in Rogue One, and now he's playing a bad guy. I like this from Gavin. This is Harrison Ford. He's getting so old that he needs to do archaeology in himself, or Indiana Jones. I thought it was kind of cool. As he said, the trailer had a different feel. We're going to be discussing the trailer in a few ticks, so don't run away. Now, with the posters, first thing I want to point out is the first time the Indiana Jones text looks completely different to the others. They've got the shading of the red at the top and the yellow at the bottom, but for this movie, even though they kept the font roughly the same, they haven't gone for that color scheme. And I thought, that's interesting. So there you go.
It is interesting. I mean, it's got, I guess, the first couple of Indiana Jones posters are some of the most iconic images ever put on posters. So it's got like a hard job to follow. It was one of those where I don't love it. It's good, but I don't love it. I look at some of the older ones, and maybe it's because I grew up with them, but I thought they are fantastic. This one's kind of doesn't have that same dramatic punch. And I don't know if it's because it's a more dark image, so not as much pops out. And I wonder if they've done that because Harrison Ford is older. It does kind of have that sort of template that they have where it's a box at the top and then the image comes out of the box towards the bottom. But out of all the Indiana Jones posters, that's probably my least favorite of the 5 movies.
It's interesting too. Normally Indiana Jones is center point, but in this case you got Voller up the top there. Overlooking it, and because there's nothing over here to balance that out. So anyway, interesting. So
there you go. Yeah, very cool. The other thing though, this will probably be a rare poster because it's getting harder and harder to get posters because all of the ones at the cinema are now digital on screen, so they don't print as many. So if you are an Indiana Jones fan, try and track it down.
Yeah,
it's good but not great. That's kind of my opinion of it. And there is a line in the trailer about capitalism, and I've put the quote there because of course there are Indiana Jones figures coming out for the new movie straight away, and the first ones are Indy, and he comes with the torch and all his different accessories and a great big king cobra. And then we've got Helena as well, and she comes with a torch and a backpack and a few other bits and pieces. Now, they are bringing out different scale figures. I haven't seen any for the Dial of Destiny yet. I've only seen these 2 so far that have been announced. They're in the Black Series, sort of the larger boxes that we've seen with Star Wars. They probably will do the standard action figure size as well. I'm 100% sure on that.
Cool. I like this. Will R2 and 3PO be making another appearance? Of course, they're in the Well of Souls on the wall. You really had to know where to look to find them in Raiders.
I'll tell you something. There's a picture of the Dial of Destiny. There's a big close-up, and I'm going, is that R2-D2's dome? There is a part on it. I was like, are they doing it again? They could be.
Yeah, no, exactly right. Now, this one, we're going to discuss this in the trailer that came out, but you've decided to put it in here.
Yes. So one of the things that I think the movie's going to hinge on is how good the special effects are, because a lot of it is set in 2 different time periods, and they're looking back to Indy when he was, I guess, the same age as Raiders of the Lost Ark, because they're fighting the Nazis again. And by doing this, as far as I understand it, they've got a double for him who is, I guess, the same size and features as Harrison Ford. And then they, I think, had sort of a mask on him to make him more look like Harrison Ford. And then they've digitally gone in and de-aged Harrison Ford and mapped his face to make a younger version of Indiana Jones. Now, I've seen movies that are absolutely amazing. I thought the last Blade Runner movie was great with Sean Young. I couldn't tell that she was de-aged. She just looked like Sean Young. And then there's other movies like Tron, where you have de-aged Jeff Bridges, and you're like, that's just horrible. That shouldn't be in the movie. This one, for me, is on the line. In some shots there, I think he looks amazing. In that last shot where he's on the top of a train, all aboard, next stop, the Uncanny Valley. I did think that one does look more like a really, really, really good computer game rather than a movie image. What did you think of the de-aging on this, Dags?
Oh, some of it's worked out. I mean, you can tell it's been done. So it's a question of whether it detracts from the character and the story. But it was interesting that they should put it in. And if you can look past it and just accept it for what it is, it might not be a problem. But otherwise, I think they've done a good job with it. So
the other thing I didn't highlight it, they've de-aged Mads Mikkelsen as well, because he's in two time zones, and his looks fine. I just thought he's just looked like him as a younger person. But Harrison Ford, sometimes I thought they didn't quite capture it, and that might be a problem, because if it is, the main character who's front and center on screen, it could be distracting.
Yeah, that's exactly right. People and somebody will pick faults of it no matter what. And you are right. The Tron clue, that was clue in the digital world. He was supposed to look digital, and I think he was a full CG head or something. So anyway, so there was a couple of quick screenshots you're just going to show here. Anything in particular you wanted to cover off? We'll cover off a couple more in detail in a tick.
Yeah, so we were just looking through. I don't know if I'm sure everyone's seen the trailer. I thought it was a good trailer. I did think it was interesting. The first choice they've ever gone with a trailer with rock music for Indiana Jones. The top one there we've just gone through does have the Dial of Destiny, which I thought maybe that is in R2's head there, or maybe not. I thought the trailer was a good mix of setting up the movie with his life, what he's doing and his retirement, and then a lot of action shots as well. I did think the direction was different from Spielberg. I thought the color palette was very the same. You looked at it and go, that's an Indiana Jones movie. So I guess there's not enough shown of it to really judge yet. I did think this was 100 times better than the first trailer.
Very cool. So just a couple of things that I picked up on. I'm just going to go through these relatively quickly. So yeah, right. So it's kicked off, and I couldn't work out the year. It's 1969. You are right. Sympathy for the Devil. I thought that was an interesting sort of choice. I'm not entirely sure where they were going with that, and why they picked it, and whether it's meant to reference anything or they just liked the sound of it and chucked it in. So yeah, I don't know. You have any thoughts on that?
I thought it was probably a brave choice not to go with the Raiders fanfare, but ultimately I thought it worked. I thought it was a good choice of music for this trailer.
Very cool. I did like this in the train when he looks at the kid, because it's part of the space race, and of course it was part of the hippie era as well. I did like that, actually. This was a cute little moment. So it's almost like poor old Indiana Jones has been relegated to using public transport. Loved it.
Yes. How cool would it have been if it had been a Spock helmet?
Absolutely love it. But that was very, very groovy. So Helena Shaw, now she's effectively the next Marion Ravenwood from Raiders. Yep. But of course, you can't have yet another ex-girlfriend to Indy. So now it's a goddaughter, and I thought it was kind of an interesting sort of way to go. So but you can see echoes of Marion in her. And I think that's quite good, because I think in the past when they had like Willie Scott, it's like Willie was a bit of a wuss and a bit of a scream queen. You needed someone who could match up with Indy and work with him, and that was kind of groovy. Now, apparently, Marion and Mutt, I believe, aren't in this, but they explain where Mutt is, what happened to him, and Marion, I don't really know what's happened to her. So
Mutt went back to his own planet.
He did indeed. Yeah, it's a dog of a planet too. So there you go. Very good. As always, with any Indiana Jones thing, you got to have the quintessential MacGuffin. So forget your DeLoreans. I mean, I don't know if this is a time machine thing, or whether they first discover it in 1944, which is where the stuff in the past takes place, and then they discover it again back in 69, or whether they do transport themselves back in time. I don't know, but clearly it's the classic MacGuffin for the show, the dial. So what do you reckon?
Well, that's another one that Spankin's going to have to get a replica of, no matter what, really, isn't it? But I do think I've heard rumors it's a time travel one, and it's about the Nazis trying to go back in time to, correct the Reich not taking over. Who knows if that's true? It could just be crazy rumors. But the last trailer did have one shot where it almost looked like they were going through hyperspace, and this one does have a picture of a plane kind of going through a portal. I do wonder if that's going to be the time travel moment.
Yeah, it looks like the Golden Compass indeed. And you are right. Replica people will go completely chopper over that. Oh my God, got to get yourself a dial. How good is this? Now, for those who didn't know, ex-Nazis working for the American space program is actually true. It's based on facts. Yep. So Werner von Braun, who actually did work for the Third Reich during the 1940s. The Americans snafu'd him up, and he was the father of the rocketeering program in America, and in particular the space race. So that's actually quite
it was
true.
called
So there you go.
Operation Paperclip, where they basically divvied up all the scientists they could get between us and the Russians, but well, the Americans and the Russians. But I think the Americans got the better deal. They got most of the rocket scientists.
They did indeed. Now, this is what when I saw the trailer, this is how I interpreted it, right? So when you have a struggling franchise, and I'm saying struggling in loose terms because after Crystal Skull, it kind of sort of went a bit pear-shaped, all you got to do is return to your roots, right?
Yep.
Now, with Crystal Skull, you're dealing with the Soviet Union, and of course you had aliens and that. That clearly wasn't going to cut the mustard. Everybody goes, mate, you got to have the Germans. Everybody loves the Germans because they're good bad guys. And of course, for that reason, we're able to go back in time and bring the Third Reich back. So I think a lot of people realize when you're making movies over a long period of time, if a formula has worked, go back to it. We saw this with The Force Awakens, picking out all the good bits of Star Wars. In this, of go, you know what? Forget the Soviets, forget anybody else, the North Koreans. It's got to go back to the Third Reich. And I think they found a way. They go, maybe we can go back in time, and away we go.
Basically, what you're telling me, they sat down with the execs and they said to Mangold, you can either go back in time with the Nazis or you can put Grogu in
it. Probably in there somewhere. And you know what? It'll work because people sort of deal with that now, and they quite enjoy it and they like it. So it's part of what made Raiders so successful in the first place. Even though the original Raiders were set before World War II, and in 1944, obviously the world was still going. So there you go. Yes, bringing the Ethel Mermans, absolutely true. And as I mentioned earlier, like with Marion before, Helena can clearly hold her own, and I think that's actually a good thing for the show. So you need someone who can stand alongside Indy and not just cave in at the sign of a desperate moment. So, which is very, very cool. And of course, this is echoes of Vogel from The Last Crusade. So once again, the formula works. Bring in the bad guy. He works for the SS, as you do. So very good.
Yeah, I did think this was with the last trailer. It was a good way to show the do's and don'ts of trailers because they showed some of the same scenes. And in the first trailer or the sort of teaser trailer, they showed the scene where Indiana Jones kind of used his whip and they all pulled out guns and shot at him, which looked kind of stupid because they all just missed because he ducked. They showed the same scene in this from a different angle and it looked much more exciting and much better shot. So I do wonder if that first scene will be cut out of the movie and was just for a joke in the trailer. We'll see what happens.
We've seen it on trailers before where they've removed shots afterwards. Oh, yeah, sorry, in Crystal Skull, there weren't aliens, interdimensional travelers. Oh, my bad. What can I say? One of the classic things that occurs in all Raiders movies, Indiana Jones movies, dark caverns, booby traps. It's a classic Indiana Jones trope, and it works. You know, I've got no problem with that at all. You know, this water thing drops down and they fall through it. All groovy, all atmospheric. And I kind of like that. Good old Sala returns. Geez, he's aged, hasn't he? It's like, Jesus Christ. So, yes. It's a bit,
and at the panel, they said Sala returns, and there may be some other classic characters that turn up at some point as well. So that'd be interesting to see what they do there.
Indeed. You know, you earlier on, you were talking about the cinematography, and they've actually replicated certain shots, you know, not exactly 100%, but they're pretty close to it. So I picked this one. And when I saw this shot, I go, I've seen this before in Raiders, and it's sort of roughly the lighting is the same with the shadows and all the rest of it. I thought, okay, that's probably intentional, a bit of a homage to their own products. I had no problems with that. I thought that was kind of cool. And as you said, now I found this interesting, right? The de-aging of Harrison Ford. Despite the high wind on the train, his hat doesn't move at all. So they obviously sat and thought about it and go, yeah, that's going to be a bit of a tricky one. What do we do? Yeah, because it should be like flapping like this or flapping back. And they've just said bugger it. No.
Well, as someone who wears a hat, I tell you, if I was on top of a train, my hat would be like 10 miles away within about 5 seconds.
So the interesting thing that I've noticed is, like, you see the big action scenes. He's riding the horse through the parade, you know, and he runs on the train and he's beating the train with the horse and all that. The problem I find with that is that since the first movies came out in the 80s, it was all groundbreaking. It was great. It was really, people were really dialed into it. Since then, there have been so many action scenes and so many movies, all the James Bond movies, all the Marvel movies, will it be classed as kitsch? People saying, oh, mate, I'm so over it. You know, he's riding a horse up a stair, big deal. Seen action scenes for the past 30 years that are really, really high end. And it probably will work, but whether the audience dials into it or not, I don't know. It's a tricky one. It's almost like, oh, yeah, I've seen this in Mission Impossible, and I've seen it in this, and I've seen it in that. Not exactly the same sequences, but stuff that reminds you of those sequences.
I tell you what, I'd rather see a traditional Indiana Jones action sequence in a new movie than go and watch a Fast and the Furious movie where the car gets blasted into space and they keep the air tight with gaffer tape or something like that.
Yeah, I love it. I totally agree with you. I like that. Yeah, better than having all the wrinkles flopping around. That would be very, very cool. The cool thing is the trailer, it does look good. We've said this before. Unfortunately, we don't want history to repeat itself. It is definitely best of luck to them. And if the audience dials into it and it ends up being a great success, that is awesome to see. The film, the franchise, because it is meant to be the last one, should finish on a high. And I'm going to say, wish them all the best. So,
so
very good. But if the crowds are excited, that's the most important thing. Sorry, dude.
I know you've said, it's not something that needs to be made, really. Will you go see it at the cinema?
Probably. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll be there opening night. I'm really looking forward to it. Even if it's another Crystal Skulls, I'd still be there opening night for Indiana Jones.
Yeah, it's certainly, there are some movies that deserve to be seen in the cinema, and clearly this one is going to be one of those, which is very, very cool. Anyway, that's it for Dial of Destiny, Dodd, Indiana Jones and the Dodd. We move on to the other trailer that came out, and this one a lot of people were sort of really hankering for, and of course it is good old Ahsoka, which was particularly cool. And there's a couple of details about this show, which is very, very groovy.
So Ahsoka and the catchphrase for it through the trailer is warrior, outcast, rebel, Jedi. And the Jedi is at the end of the trailer, probably implying that she's moving back to become a Jedi again. I thought it was an interesting trailer. Of course, we've got new actors that have been announced as part of the series in the last couple of days as well. And I think that's fantastic because there's been a lot of speculation. Some of them were known. Some of them have been speculated about. But I thought this whole trailer was top-notch.
Very good. Here we go. Some new characters that are appearing.
So we've got, of course, Ahsoka, who's been in the series before, so we all knew how that was going to go. I think they've announced some of these. I can't remember if I did know Mary Elizabeth Winstead was going to play Hera. I don't know if that's new to the trailer or we'd heard it in the past. And we've got Sabine, who had also been announced, and I knew it was an Aussie. I didn't remember who it actually was, but we've got Natasha Lee Bordizzi. Is it Bordizzi? I'm not sure. But so I thought that was very attractive cast and very good casting. I like Mary right back from Scott Pilgrim. And so I was really pleased to see she's playing Hera. And the other thing is I've used a picture there where that's from the Clone Wars series, the Rebels series. But the shots in the trailer, she looks really fantastic.
Yeah, I'm going to cover that off in a tick.
And then the big one, we've got Lars Mikkelsen playing Grand Admiral Thrawn, which is a surprise, but not a surprise because he was the voice actor in the series as well. And so, of course, Admiral Thrawn goes right back to Heir to the Empire, which was one of the very first spin-offs from Star Wars back in the wilderness years where there was hardly any Star Wars at all. And they were testing the water to see whether the Thrawn franchise had any legs beyond the first three movies. So I thought this was quite good news. I can see him playing a really good Thrawn. I don't know if he will turn up before Ahsoka in the Mandalorian or whether it will be his first appearance when he's in the Mandalorian. What did you think of this casting?
Yeah, interesting. I didn't know about the Mary Elizabeth appearance. I didn't pick up on that, but it looks good. But there are a couple of things I'm going to discuss as we go along. Now, you put in some screenshots. I'm just going to bypass them to get into the actual bits that I really wanted to cover off.
Yep.
Very good. Yes, you are right. Mara Jade's still missing, at least at this stage. The one that they will not put in. It's almost like they got a thing on the Lucasfilm wall. Do not include Mara Jade no matter what. So that's the one I think if they announced that, the fans would go completely over. And you are right. Heir to the Empire is actually mentioned in the trial. I thought that was very clever that they should do that, actually. That was very, very cool. A couple of things I just want to point out. So I'm not going to go through the whole thing because we kind of don't need to, but so I thought this was interesting, right? So for those who know the history from the Clone Wars when it was made in the sort of 2000s and 8s or 9s or whatever, good old Ahsoka is one of the most despised characters in the entire series. I mean, everybody could not stand her for love or money. But now not only is she back, she's a fan favorite, and of course she's got her own show. So it's like, good on them for doing it, and we'll have to see where it all leads. And it's pretty clear to see this looks like an old Jedi temple as far as I'm aware. And this is, as you mentioned, the same year as The Mandalorian Season 3, which is 9 ABY, which is after the Battle of Yavin, or 5 years after Return of the Jedi. So
Yeah.
I mean, she cuts a hole in the ground and drops through here. So, how'd you find this, dude? Did it work for you?
I thought it was good because although we've seen this in the animated series and stuff before, I don't think in live action we've seen sort of walls get melted with lightsabers, but never anyone cut a hole in the ground and drop through, have we?
Oh, jeez. I think the answer is yes, but I can't think off the top. You put me on the spot, dude. Tell you what,
Anyway, I
because
thought it was a good.
it happened in deleted scene of Revenge of the Sith, where the guys cut a hole
Yeah.
in the invisible hand and they just dropped through into the water, if I recall. But oh god, dude,
Yeah.
I don't know. So
Anyway,
I think
I
yes is
thought
yes.
it was good, and I thought it was a good atmospheric way to set up the beginning of the trailer as well. And the trailer is really well put together, where it builds up as it goes along, which like good trailers should.
Indeed. Now they obviously they got all these bits. They put them in different spots of the trailer, but you can piece them all together pretty quickly. So clearly, at this Jedi Temple thing, she comes across some baddies. Don't know who these guys are, but it all looks very groovy, very exciting. You got to have some action scenes, and then we get into what you said about the casting. Now, as always, right now this is Sabine Wren, and at this point she's 31 years old. So this is like nearly 10 years after when we saw her in Rebels.
Yeah.
And of course, if people have never watched Rebels, right, they're going to have no idea who these people are, who these characters are, and the background and the history and all the rest of it. So, once again, it's that whole thing of bringing animated characters across the live action, which is nothing wrong with that. It's all good. But if people go, well, who is this? Why is this? Why is everybody going completely troppo over this person we've never seen before? But we have seen it before. And I'm very curious to see how that works. And I like the fact that with her, I mean, Sabine always had like the Asian sort of complexion, and the actress whose name I've just forgotten, she also has a Chinese father and an Italian mother, so she comes from that Asian background as well, which I thought was quite good. But she is older here than as she appears in Rebels, which I thought was quite good.
And as we've discussed on The Mandalorian, some of the armors are good and some of them look quite a bit dodgy. I think hers is one of the better looking Mandalorian armors as well.
Well, yeah, she used to do all these groovy colors, and you kind of got that because it was a very individual thing, and she had a knack for spray painting artwork all over the place. She even had her own version of the Rebel logo, which she turned it on its side, and it was actually a bird and all. It was very, very cool, actually. Speaking of which, how many fans are going to go completely chopper over the jacket? Oh, got to get me one of those jackets. What do you reckon?
Well, not me, but a lot of fans probably will.
Yes. She does it without holding a lightsaber. Is very cool. I'm not sure what you meant there, Eds. So yeah, very, very cool. Yes. So I thought it was good. They brought Sabine in. That's all well and good. And of course, you've got Hera, as you mentioned earlier, right? And once again, another Rebels-inspired character. And what I think was interesting, and this is the question you've got to ask, is how well will the characters integrate into live action? Will they all come across successfully? And I don't know. It's a tricky one. I mean, when I look at Hera, the Rebels version, she has a completely different look to what I expected in terms of a live action actress. So yeah, I don't know, but some will work, some probably won't. So I don't know. What do you think?
I thought they've done a pretty good pretty good job with the casting in this. I thought all of them crossed over fine. I didn't look at any of them and go, that's not how I imagine them looking. So I thought they did a good job. I guess we haven't really seen enough of them to really judge yet, though, have we?
No, well, of course we haven't. Absolutely, you are right, Daniel. Yeah, that's that's what he said there. The Phoenix logo there. That's her version of the logo. So and now that's actually been brought into live action. That'll be very, very groovy. So we'll have to see how it all pans out. But it's good to see that they're there. As we said, if you've never seen Rebels, you're going to be completely lost. Speaking of which, Chopper. He looks grouse, doesn't he? I mean, he has appeared in Rogue One before, so this is his second live action appearance. But I reckon he has the potential to be a massive fan favorite, almost the Grogu of the series, because he was always very popular in Rebels.
It depends. I guess it really does depend how much they use these characters as well, because it's the Ahsoka show, and she might just be visiting these for an episode, or they could be an integral part of the storyline. We don't know yet.
Don't know. That's a good point. But of course, you've got to have your bad guys. So we've got this dude, Balin Skull. He's the new bad dude. No idea who he is. They've changed the blade a bit, so he's not just pure red. It's sort of reddish orange.
They said in the when I was listening to the interviews and watching Celebration, they said they're not Jedi and they're not Sith, and that's why the blades are a bit different, because they're neither.
Yeah, it's kind of a bit of a wanky one, isn't it? Because we know that they can't be Sith because the Sith have been destroyed. We know that, except for when Palpatine comes back at the end of Rise of Skywalker, right? But just because you're not Sith doesn't mean your blade suddenly changes color. It's either going to be red or it's not going to be red, right? So they kind of wanked that one up a little bit because there's a history as to how lightsaber blades turn into red. You corrupt the blade, it turns in. It's meant to represent blood, right? So to have it is like, oh, I've just cut it a little bit. You've corrupted the crystal a tiny bit, so it's not pure red. So. All right, I reckon they're wanking that one up. So, but anyway, not to worry. But anyway, he's apparently the bad guy, and of course, he's got his apprentice, Shin. I'm not going to remember half these names, dude. I don't know if you will. Shin, I think it's Haiti or Haiti. I don't really know, but she's Balin's apprentice. So, who knows what they're up to.
I did think it was funny watching the live stream as everything's being announced that when you're revealed new names, you hear them and then you forget them instantly. And a year from now, it'll be burnt into lore, won't it?
You'd hope so. It's so much to take in sometimes, isn't it? So they're introducing all these new adversaries. You don't know what they're all about and what they're doing. We do know that they obviously attack a New Republic ship, and I like the way that this lady reacted. Just got the gun out straight away. So it probably doesn't end well for them. But it was good seeing, and of course, all the visual effects look great. All the spaceship scenes look really, really good. You're never going to fault that. So that's one thing that's part of.
I guess that's the one good thing in the era we live in, when you get a company like Disney and they're doing Star Wars now, you know that it's going to look good. There's more good stuff than bad stuff in science fiction, just because the technology's come along so much.
He reminds me of Sabaoth. Yeah, that's the bad guy from Joruus. Sabaoth was actually the bad guy from Heir to the Empire. I mean, Timothy Zahn was notorious for creating really difficult names to pronounce. And in fact, Thrawn, his actual character's name is not Thrawn. And I looked it up today. It's like some ridiculous, starts with an M, is this really long thing with apostrophes in it. And I go, freaking hell, dude, what the hell? Couldn't have just called him Fred? So Thrawn's not his real name. It'll be one for the trivia nerds. Yeah, I couldn't remember. I don't even want to know. But anyway, his name apparently isn't Thrawn. But yeah, Sabaoth. So maybe it could be inspired by that. Who knows? But we go back to Lothal. So the big Rebels thing. For those who never watched Rebels, this is all going to be brand new to you. So the top picture there is what the Lothal looks like. And of course, Sabine is still in the tower, Ezra's tower, because I think he was hanging out there originally. And I like the fact they've even kept the same railing design. How about that?
Yeah. Well,
if you've got the detail in it.
If you've got a CG skeleton, just go with it and use the same thing. I'm sure it probably helps the designers in the process of making it if a lot of it's already in the computer ready to go, and they just have to make it photorealistic rather than cartoon realistic.
Well, for those who remember the series Rebels, we get to the point you go, get off Lothal. We're sick. It's just a planet that, because there was, for those who don't know, there was an Imperial base there. They were building TIE fighters and then the TIE Defenders, I think, and TIE Advance, whatever TIE fighters, whole shitload of them, right? Yeah. And it was like, everybody's going, get off this friggin' planet. It's just, who cares about Lothal? What's the big deal? And they eventually did. And now, of course, we're coming back to it. And for those who didn't realize, the countryside in Lothal used to be a bit on the boring side, probably because of budget constraints from the TV series. And that's the reason why the background looks so boring. But even that tower is exactly the same. So Lothal it is, for those who remember Rebels or don't care. So there you go.
You just imagine the scene. We're getting off Lothal. Where are we going? Tatooine.
Yeah, exactly right. It does look good, though. The imagery is very, very cool.
Yeah.
I've got to say. And this harks back almost to some of the Alderaan stuff that we saw in Book of Boba Fett. Obi-Wan Kenobi. But, yeah, you got to love good visuals when you see them. So thank you. His true name is Mithraw. See, yeah, it's like, what the hell, man? Seriously. So I think any nerd who commits that to memory, like 5 or 6 years from now, they definitely need their head read. So, yeah. And Timothy Zahn come up with that. It's like, what are you? Timothy, just stick with the normal names, dude. What is the go? At least Mara Jade was easy to pronounce. So.
Again, in the talk, they were talking about this when they were revealing it. They said they're harking back to more Timothy Zahn stuff in this series than has been announced as well. So there could be some surprises still.
Yes, I did hear that. The writers have turned to him when it comes to writing Thrawn's character. I think that's actually very, very cool. So is there going to be a lot of pressure? It has to work. The Thrawn thing has to work. Otherwise, the crowd is going to go, well, that's just complete rubbish. But we'll get to Thrawn in a sec. In the interim, Lothcats. They actually appeared in other series and different planets, if I recall. But for those who don't know, they're actually nastier than they look. But it's good to see that's the Porg of the Ahsoka series. What do you reckon?
Yeah, we've seen them in a few things, and when they get mean, it's quite funny. They are cool little creatures, though, aren't they?
Yes, but they kind of sound like cats, but they're a tad bit more aggressive. Now, of course, you've got the New Republic leadership. Great to see Genevieve O'Reilly back again as Mon Mothma. Last time we saw her, she's trying to create the Rebel Alliance in Andor. Now she's in charge of the New Republic. The world is good. What do you reckon?
Yeah, yeah. I really do like the whole, I guess, empire building where they cross the shows over and there's Easter eggs from one and the other, and it all fits together nicely. It does show that they have probably some grand design mapped out somewhere where everything fits together, and they've done it pretty well. So I was happy to see that.
Love it. Lothcats, Chrissy says, a cat, duck, giraffe hybrid. Yeah, good luck trying to work that one out. And for those who didn't put two and two together, I wasn't aware of this until I read it myself. This dude here is apparently the father of Kaz from Resistance. If you've ever seen Resistance, it is a painful show to watch because it's clearly aimed at children. But he is the lead character for that. So there's a little gag for you, for those who didn't know. So, well,
I didn't pick that one up at all. So well spotted.
Yeah, there you go. So very, very cool. So Thrawn finally appears, right? So he's been dropping hints about this guy the whole way through. Now, the question I've got to ask is that 25 years from now, we're going to have the First Order and the Final Order, and he's not around for any of that. So how does he fit into the scheme of things right now with what's going to be coming later on? And I'd be curious to see how they tackle it. Remember, in the Heir to the Empire novels, he dies at the end, right?
Yeah.
So there must be a point in time where it's like he can't just gain all his power and get gigantic and big because he doesn't appear anywhere else in the sequel trilogy. So somewhere along the way, he's got to lose. So I don't know. Make of that what you will.
Maybe he goes into hiding and has plastic surgery and becomes Richard E. Grant.
Well, very, very good. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, for the short term, it's great to have this new adversary. It's all good. Now, remember, I had said that in The Mandalorian, Gideon, everybody's talking about Gideon. Gideon's got to come back. The problem is if you stand Moff Gideon next to Grand Admiral Thrawn, people are going to go, Gideon who? He's going out the window straight away. Thrawn is the one that everybody's going to be looking forward to. And unfortunately, that's a bit of a downside for poor old Moff Gideon. It's like, dude, mate, you're like a Dimmy's knockoff of a bad guy. So
you haven't even got your dark saber anymore. What I could see happening, well, it's going to happen. He's going to be set up as the main bad guy. He will survive this series, and then the movie that wraps up all the Mandoverse stuff will be where he meets his demise, or the start of the movies where he meets his demise. But I think that's where they're going with this, setting him up as the really big bad guy. And then in the movie, he wheels out his galaxy guns or whatever he had and stuff like that, you know.
Yeah, well, if they do kill him off, and they probably will have to because his storyline doesn't continue on, I'd be curious to see how the audience reacts to it. So, very cool. And said, that's the reason why Mara Jade doesn't appear in the show, because her name is way too easy to pronounce. And Shane's talking about the extended trailer for Ahsoka, which is what we're discussing right now, which is cool. And yes, now the magistrate that we saw earlier, Morgan Elspeth, I think her name is, pops in here. Now, I widened this shot out for one. Did you notice there were droids on the side here?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, I picked up on that. And I'm not sure if the pictures, the round circle things represent anything. That what they're looking at here is the same as what's over there. And I thought it might have had something to do with the world between worlds, but it wasn't. So I'm not entirely sure what the deal was with that. So, yeah, I wonder if they mean anything.
No, I didn't pick that up, so I'm not sure on that one.
Yeah, in case we didn't know who we're talking about, so it's Morgan Elsbeth. Oh, God, just call her Morgan. And, of course, we saw her in the Mandalorian season when she was mentioned Thrawn because Ahsoka was trying to track her down. So kind of lost her hairstyle a little bit, but she's clearly here to meet Thrawn. So that should be very, very groovy to see what comes out of that. So for those who didn't realize who it was. Now, this one with Ahsoka, the background looks like Dagobah to me. I was like, what are the chances she's flown off to Dagobah to have a chat to good old Yoda? Oh, Gavin will get excited.
Didn't even think of that. It does look like the ethereal swamps of Dagobah. I don't know if it will be, though.
Probably not. I like ethereal. Geez, that's a big word for today, isn't it? And another character. Once again, all these Rebels characters getting brought in. And, of course, I didn't realize it. I thought, is that meant to be Ezra Bridger? Now, Ezra, of course, is lost in the world between worlds. Make of that what you will. He'd be 29 at this point. And everybody seems to be looking for him and talking about him. As to why is anybody's guess, because he was just another dude, really. But everybody had force capabilities. Yeah, we get that. But, and if you do the reverse of that, I got the impression like Sabine was like missing him, right? But, of course, she really didn't give a rat's about Ezra in Rebels. And if anything, he had the hots for her because she's a couple of years older than he is. So how'd you make all this out, dude?
Well, I saw in the feedback for the trailer that they're going, "Oh, that's Ezra." They haven't announced that. I think the jury's out on that one. I don't know. Is it the costume that he would wear? I'm just not sure of that. I just think it's a different character, and everyone's presuming. But don't trust me. I could be totally wrong.
You know what? I'm hearing you too. It might not be Ezra. I mean, they're introducing all these Rebels people. Why not? It could be. And I thought, yeah, okay. Make of that what you will. I don't know if you picked up on this. I did. It's an Inquisitor's lightsaber. So,
yeah, I did see that as well. So, will we get the Inquisitors? And it probably will, I guess, because they're still around.
Well, dark side or dark force users are still around, but as to whether they be Inquisitors, because who are they being Inquisitors for? They're not for the Inquisitors for the Empire or anybody like that. So, anyway,
well, I've heard that Grand Admiral Thrawn is quite inquisitive.
The cool thing is it looked good. I mean, these things always do look good. If it fits in the Mandalorian universe, it is set in the same year, as we said, of season 3. Maybe there'll be crossovers. We've seen the one with Din and Ahsoka with Luke. You never know. So it's open to a whole lot of stuff. And I guess the thing is now that Mandalorian, which is kind of ironic because the last episode that was out last week probably was not the best of the season. And it came out just before Celebration was on. And then, of course, the trailer of this comes out. It could be that the Mandalorian, the flagship show of, at least for the fans, gets shoved aside and Ahsoka takes its place, which is the most bizarre thing of all time. So what do you reckon?
Yeah, apparently there's been very muted news on The Mandalorian with not much news at all as to what's happening going forward. Maybe this will be the new flagship show. I don't think the story in The Mandalorian is going to wrap up in the next couple of weeks, though, so there'll definitely be another series. Who is the lead of that series and what direction they go is totally up in the air, I think, at the moment.
Totally agree. I missed one slide. I just realized that. I can't pronounce his character's name. Huyang, I think it is. Appeared in the Clone Wars, actually helped all the younglings build their Jedi lightsabers. And of course, from the Clone Wars. And it was voiced by David Tennant, because you know who that is. And I believe he may have done the motion capture for this. I got no idea. But it was just kind of interesting that this dude should pop up. So there you go. There's an Easter egg for the nerds out there.
And that's a fantastic way to end the show off on Doctor Who.
Good on you. Yes. So when they switch the droid on, instead of, when you boot up a computer and you got the Windows ding 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 ding, when you boot up him, he goes woo woo. Oh geez, how tragic is that? Anyway, so that was the Ahsoka trailer. It comes out. Was it August? Was it August?
It was. We've got a way to go. There were other trailers, but they haven't been released online. Most of the shows we talked about at the beginning of this episode did get exclusive trailers to Celebration, but they haven't put them up online. So unless someone filmed them on their phones, we're probably not going to see them for a while.
Very good. So that's the end of our pictures. We're going to wrap up in a sec. So how did you find it all, Indiana Jones and Ahsoka, dude?
Well, I thought I'm excited. I'm looking forward to Indiana Jones a lot more than I was a couple of days ago. And Ahsoka's a bonus where I thought that looked fantastic as well. And I'm really looking forward to that series. What about you?
Yeah, I tend to agree. I mean, the Indiana Jones thing for me isn't as important, but the Ahsoka thing, I did watch it with you in the store yesterday, and I was like, oh, that's actually better than I thought it would be, actually. So very, very cool. That's what I'm talking about, the extended phone trailer. Oh, okay. Someone's obviously filmed it in Celebration and put it online somewhere. So we'll have to see if we can check that out. 10 of those phone ones tend to be a little bit all jerky, and it's like, and someone goes, oh, wow, check it out. And you can't hear what's going on. But
isn't that how our show is filmed? So.
Yeah, exactly right. But it would be funny to see if Mandalorian gets pushed aside, Ahsoka takes over and becomes the bee's knees show of all time. Even if obviously it's designed for fans. Most fans will have seen Rebels, so that's all good. They'll figure it all out, all the characters. If you haven't seen Rebels, you're going to be way behind the 8 ball, as I said earlier. But hopefully with a bit of luck, they sort of fill all the gaps in, and the crowd can dial in really, really quickly. So very good. Oh, you get to see Thrawn's face. Oh, wackadoo. How about that? Oh,
I can't believe we missed that. So I'll have to track that down.
Yeah, we're slow as you can possibly imagine. So there you go. All right, well, we're going to buzz off now because we're going to clearly nick off to YouTube and see if we can find what Thrawn's face looks like. And there you go. Before we go, as always, don't forget you got to check out the old Sci-Fi Zone socials on on YouTube and Twitch and all those other places, Instagram, etc., which is very, very cool. And of course, they got Aaron's store, Mr. Aaron. Very quickly, tell us about your store.
We've got a little bit of everything, anything popular culture. We will definitely have lots of Star Wars at the moment. Another collection came in last week, so the store is full, even fuller than normal. Apparently, spoilers. He's got a blue face. Maybe it was Cad Bane,
or he's the world's second biggest Smurf. So there you go. Very, very good. All right, we're going to buzz off and leave you to a party hard, everybody. And for those who are interested, you will definitely see everybody tomorrow for the discussion about last week's episode, Guns for Hire of the Mandalorian series. All right, we'll leave you to it, and we'll catch you then. Okay, take care. Bye-bye.
Have a good night.